Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Detroit Public Safety Headquarters. Well, we're here for an announcement and press engagement associated with the new proposal that was submitted to Council, Proposal N, Neighborhood Improvement Bonds. And so to do that, we've got a bunch of special guests who are going to help us talk through what's been proposed. Suffice it to say, this is an important proposal for the council's consideration and hopefully for every Detroit voter who could come out during the presidential election on November 3rd of this year. To start the conversation, I'd like to introduce Mayor of Detroit, Mike Duggan, to get the conversation kicked off. Mayor?
Well, good afternoon. This is a little different than most of our afternoon briefings, but we don't have the luxury in the city of Detroit of only dealing with one problem at a time. And the problems in the neighborhoods have been urgent for a while. Last November, I proposed basically a demolition bond, and my goal was to erase all the houses over 5 years. As you know, in November, that did not pass. And when council voted it down, I know there were people who wanted us to fight with each other, but we didn't. I said at the time it was my fault for not having presented a proposal that could be acceptable. Everything that's happened in the city, from the street lights to the FCA plant to the buses, has happened because the mayor and the council have worked together. And immediately after that proposal went down, we started having conversations. And what you're going to see today is a dramatically revised plan. And joining me are Councilman Scott Benson, who has more houses that need to be demolished in his district than any others. He supported the November plan. Also with me today is Councilman Andre Spivey, who has more of a mix. He voted against the November plan. He'll tell you why, but in significant part, he didn't feel we were doing enough to save the houses that could be saved. And we had a couple of council members who said they weren't going to vote for it because they felt the election should be in November when there was a larger turnout and not March. So for the last several months, we've been having conversations with our council members, getting their input, and I think we've made the plan better. With COVID-19, this city has been hit hard economically in a way we couldn't have conceived of last November. And while Detroit is leading the country in knocking the virus down, the economic impact is going to last for a long time. And so over the last couple months as we've been talking about this, we said we have to do not just something to improve the neighborhoods, we got to put Detroiters to work. We've got to create jobs and we've got to help build the businesses in the city. And so we said, could we come back with a plan that addressed the council members' concerns about a need to preserve the houses that were there, but could also deal with the unemployment. And so let me show you what we're talking about, and then I'm going to give them a chance along with some of the community leaders who have been engaged in this. But last November, you know what we're dealing with, 22,000 abandoned houses. We believe 8,000 can be saved and 14,000 have to be demolished. Our goal in November was to get the ones down that had to be demolished. We're changing that approach now. We're saying our first priority is we are going to save the 8,000 houses that are structurally sound. And we believe with some other funds we have enough to demolish 8,000. We can't get to all 14,000 demolitions in the next 2 or 3 years, because we're making a decision today, if the voters decide to support this, to prioritize saving the ones we can. And so last November, we said we're going to demolish. What we're saying now is, first priority, save all 8,000 houses we can by securing them so there's time for them to be rehabbed. We use the balance of the funds to demolish what we believe will be another 8,000. We're going to require Detroiters to be hired by the contractors to do this work. We're going to put Detroiters to work. This program is not going to be at the land bank. It's at the city of Detroit with city council oversight, which is a big issue to council members and I think to a lot of people in this community. And there's going to be no increase in your taxes. We've got the capacity to borrow the money without any increase in your property tax rate. That's the proposal as we are putting it forward. Anybody who lives in the neighborhood knows what these houses look like. But these are all examples of abandoned houses. This city cleared out so fast in the last decade that people left behind all kinds of structurally sound buildings. And these are all examples of houses that the land bank is selling right now. They are structurally sound abandoned buildings. We have 8,000 like this in the land bank's inventory today that could still be saved, and we could have 8,000 more housing units, families living here, instead of vacant buildings. We've saved thousands already, and you've seen this. Like this house on Teller that got renovated in this way. This house on Lilac looked like this, and we sold it and got it renovated to look like that. There is a history in this city of several thousand houses that have been renovated, but under the federal demolition funding, the hardest hit program, the Fed said you cannot use a nickel of federal money to rehabilitate a house. So we spent $265 million in demolition, and it was highly effective. But we didn't have any financial resources to help save the houses we could save. And these are the 8,000 houses all across the city that if we act now, we could preserve. Here's the problem. Every year, we lose 1,000 of those good houses. We lose them to vandals, we lose them to arson, we lose them to the weather. 1,000 houses that people could move into end up being destroyed each year by natural blight because we don't step in. And so this house on Clover Lawn in August of 2018 looked perfectly good. Less than a year later, it looked like that. This house on Gartner was structurally sound, could have been saved in 2018. A year later, it collapsed and couldn't be. People in the city of Detroit neighborhoods have watched this happen week after week, month after month, year after year. The house that got abandoned across the street from that could have been saved was allowed to deteriorate. And so this house just last August in Hamburg was absolutely salvageable, and less than a year later, it's gone. This is what's happening to 1,000 houses a day because we're not intervening. And this is the case that a number of city council members and community groups said is, hey, let's save the structurally sound houses before we demolish everything. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go at it in a three-step process. We're going to go at these 8,000 salvageable houses. And first step, we're going to go in and we're going to clean them all out. A lot of them are filled with trash, with tires, in some cases dead animals. We're going to go through, and each of them we're going to clean them out. Then second, we're going to secure them. The board-ups have been very successful, but plywood can be pulled off relatively easily. It is not long-term security to preserve a house. And so there's a product, for example, called Clearview. It looks like glass. It is actually an unbreakable polycarbonate. You can't get into it without melting it off. It's more expensive, but instead of plywood, it preserves the house. Or there are other systems like this that is a heavy-duty steel system. We believe that about 6,000 of the houses need a strong exterior protection installed to give folks time to rehabilitate the house. So our priority is going to be this. And then third, we're going to go to the roofs. And we're going to fix the leaking roofs so that the water's not pouring in, doing the damage. So if we can clean them out, if we can secure the exterior so you can't have intruders, vandals getting in, and you don't have leaks from the top, now the community groups, the neighbors, have got the time to keep these houses in good shape. So what will it do? It will give the community partners time to move in. Look, if the house looks like that and is secured like that, what does it do? It adds value to anybody that wants to buy it. We'll probably put $10,000 or so per house into securing the outside, fixing the roof. That means for anybody who buys that house, we've added $10,000 or $15,000 worth of value right off the bat. It makes it far more attractive to the community groups. And if you're a buyer who wants to fix it up, you can put in plumbing and furnace and not have to be nearly as worried that somebody's going to come in and steal them because we have a secure exterior system in place. And we're already talking to City Council about a policy that will give preference to the neighbors so that people who've been in the neighborhoods can get the first shot at these homes. This is the way we ought to be doing it. That, along with some other funds, will allow us to take down 8,000 houses that look like this, that have to be demolished, and we can do that over the next 3 years. This will transform the quality of life in the neighborhoods in this city if we secure 8,000 houses and move families in and get rid of the 8,000 burned out houses that can't be saved. We believe all of that is possible, and we're going to put people to work. Unemployment is soaring in the city. Right now it's being somewhat buffered by the federal unemployment checks through the end of July, but it's going to take a while before the unemployment rate recovers. Nobody's coming to help us. This is a chance for Detroit to help ourselves. So we're going, as we propose it, that any contractor who gets a contract to either secure a house or demolish a house, you're going to have to do one of two things. You're either going to have to follow our executive order that requires 51% of the hours worked to be worked by Detroiters. You're going to have to put Detroiters on the job, or if you're in a company that doesn't have 51% Detroiters, you can sign up for the FCA hiring process. And those of you who are familiar with this know, FCA has agreed that to fill all of their positions in the city, they are interviewing Detroit candidates screened and recruited by Detroit at Work before they interview anybody from the outside. So Detroit at Work is getting ready to do training programs and recruitment programs. We're going to get Detroiters ready for these construction-related jobs, and we're going to require the companies doing work to hire Detroiters, putting Detroiters to work rebuilding our neighborhoods. The other thing is, we want the work to go to Detroit companies. And there's been media coverage about the fact that Detroit companies didn't get a lot of the federal demolition work. That's true. Under the federal rules, we were not allowed to give preference to a Detroit company. Federal law doesn't allow it. But this is city money. And now it'll be governed by city council ordinances, which means there are preferences that are significant bid benefits for Detroit-based and Detroit-headquartered companies. We believe well in excess of 51% of the contracts will be awarded to Detroit companies. We will build up Detroit companies in the construction-related areas and have them hire Detroiters. This is a way to create significant stimulus in the city of Detroit for at the same time that we improve our neighborhoods. And finally, because of the partnership between the mayor and the council in managing our finances, we're able to do this. And we can sell these bonds without raising taxes. We've had 7 bond rating upgrades since we left bankruptcy in 2014. Nobody would have predicted that 6 years ago. And when I stood in this room and moved quickly on the budget response to COVID, and City Council, a few weeks later, on a 9-0 vote, adopted those budget balancing measures, Wall Street praised the city of Detroit as a national leader in responding honestly to COVID-related challenges. So we have the credibility to be able to sell these bonds. And the CFO has already started conversations. We believe these bonds absolutely can be sold. And because we've done so well financially up till the last few months, we already paid down $180 million we had in bankruptcy, which means because other debt is being paid off, we can sell $250 million worth of bonds, but your taxes won't go up because the other debt has been paid off and is being paid off in a way that this will be in its place. It's basically like refinancing your house and spreading it out over more years, but keeping your mortgage payment the same. This is a question. Is it worth $250 million to finally not have a generation of children in Detroit grow up in neighborhoods full of blight? Can we fix this once and for all? And so what we're saying to council is, this is a decision for the voters. We aren't asking city council to sell the bonds. We're asking the voters of Detroit to sell the bonds. We'd like to have a 3-month conversation and say to the people of Detroit, we've got 8,000 houses that look like this that are deteriorating. Or we can have those 8,000 houses go from this to this. This is the conversation we'd like to have in the next 3 months. I just think city council leadership deserves enormous credit. This is a much better plan. I got to tell you, the November plan that failed was my plan. This plan is a product of teamwork, and it is a much better plan. And it's a much better plan in significant part because of the participation of the person who voted against us in November and has been telling me ever since that he was going to make it better, Councilman Andre Spivak. Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. So the mayor is right. The day we had our vote, I think I came right downstairs after we took that vote, we began conversations that day. And I asked for a more robust plan to have some of the homes renovated, to do more for our local contractors and demo contractors, and we have that right here. And I support this plan. I'm ready to vote for it when that time does come. I still receive phone calls from residents who live near a vacant house and is leaning close to their home. I still have residents who cannot get homeowners insurance and they're on their property because they live in an area where they have too many vacant homes. And this plan will help take care of that. It does several things for me. It satisfies me. One, we will save some homes that can be saved, meaning we move families in those homes, we build up neighborhoods, they begin to pay property taxes, and we have more money for our city finances to improve our city all around. Secondly, we will demolish all those homes that have been eyesores, not for weeks, months, or years, but in some areas they've been eyesores for decades. And so we're going to do that with this plan here. I also asked the mayor, can we do more for our locally based contractors who are here? As you heard the mayor say, we couldn't do much with federal guidelines, but now we can do that. And we have men and women who are prepared right now to demo a home, do lead abatement, to do air monitoring. They're prepared right now to do that. And because they are locally based, they hire Detroiters, and more folk in Detroit can work. It's a public safety issue as well, to keep our neighborhoods clean and to keep them safe. And so I'm hoping that this goes past the council within the next 2 weeks. It goes to the people in November, and we can move forward. Our job as a council is to only place it on the ballot. When we do that, the administration and council will go throughout the community, providing an educational tour to let people know what we're doing and how we'll better manage our finances and make sure we do it correctly going forward. I'm confident that council will take care of the dollars we will approve. At the end of the day, every contract that we procure comes past the council for an approval. It comes by us. And so we're going to make sure that we spend our dollars correctly. Also, we have men and women who are prepared now for new careers. They're waiting on the sidelines to be trained right now through Detroit at Work, Wayne County Community College, Detroit Employment Solutions, to train people right now to renovate a home, to demolish a home, to do landscaping, every job that we will need in this process. We can begin training people right now when we go to the bond market and make sure we get those funds and they're prepared to work. And so if you live in a neighborhood where you have no vacant house, where you have no homes that are dilapidated or vacant properties, good for you. We want to get every neighborhood just like that. But think about the rest of Detroit who may have neighborhoods where there's a vacant house every other house, where children can't walk safely down the street. Think about our entire city. This will help and be a model, I believe, to keep people in Detroit and to bring people back to Detroit. As the mayor said, when the vote was denied in November, it did no one any good to go back and forth and point fingers and choose sides. But when that happens, we went right back to the table. We found what can we do to improve the plan, and now we're doing just that. And so my colleague, Scott Benson, is here to my north and to my west, and he has the most homes, I believe, in the city that are vacant in any district here. And so he will come and share stories in his district, and I hope that now going forward, we can get our approval from our colleagues, and we can make this a viable plan to improve Detroit. It's no longer just a demo plan, it is a neighborhood improvement plan. And so as Mayor said, every neighborhood has a future. Right now, this will help to intensify that mantra that every neighborhood does indeed have a future, and I hope that it goes forward again the next 2 weeks, and that the public will look at it, read it over, research it, quiz us, question us. But at the end of the day, this is a great plan for the city of Detroit. And I'm glad that the mayor and Arthur Jimson and his team went back and added more to it, took things out. I think it is an all-around 100% good plan. If we have to add more later on, we can do that too. If we find from the public things we might have missed. But I think right now we have a great plan, and it will move forward, hopefully. And I'm prepared to vote for that, Mr. Mayor. And we'll move forward together. And at this time, let me invite my colleague from District 3, Scott Benson, to come at this time. Scott Benson.
Thank you, Andre Spivey. Just number one, I want to say thank you to the administration, to the mayor, to my colleagues, and to the community for helping to make this a better plan. And as the mayor indicated earlier, I supported this back in November. And I supported this because this is what my residents in the 3rd District demanded. And so you're going to hear from one of our chief community leaders, George Preston later, to talk about why this is so important in the Mohican region area. But if you talk to residents in the 3rd District and you talk to my district office, blight is the #1 issue overwhelmingly amongst the 3rd District residents. Behind that comes jobs and then crime. And so what you have here is a plan that will be able to address all 3 of those issues. And as I always like to say, my #1 issue, #2 issue, #3 issue, jobs, jobs, and more jobs. And so when you have the opportunity to bond and take on the money that we can invest into our neighborhoods, we're going to be able to knock down homes in our most challenged neighborhoods, in our most low-income neighborhoods, the areas that didn't see these type of resources in the past. We're going to be able to hire our residents who are going to be looking for jobs. And as the mayor indicated, once the monies run out on the 25th of July from the federal government, you're going to see a great change in people's economic standing within the city of Detroit. And it's important that we give people opportunities to invest and rebuild their own communities. Another issue is going to be crime. And so when we had public comment regarding the blight bonds in November and October of last year, we heard from residents who talked about walking to high school, but having to walk in the morning and then having men cajole and try to drag them into homes so that they could be done with in ungodly ways. And so we need to figure, and this is how we're going to be able to help reduce crime in our neighborhoods, bring jobs in our neighborhoods, and reduce the level of blight. This is a social, an economic, and an environmental justice issue that we can address now. And so when I listen to my bosses, Ms. Causey in Crayons Woods, Ms. Leatherwood in Crayons Woods, who talk about how they have lived in their homes for 50+ years, and this is now an opportunity for them to get rid of the rats, to get rid of the vermin, to reduce crime, and to help them have a quality of life that they haven't seen in decades. So I listen to my bosses. I am fully in support of this because #1, we're going to be able to remove the blight, but #2, we're also going to be able to bring more residents back into our neighborhoods by rehabbing these homes and in hiring our neighborhoods, hiring residents from our own neighborhoods to help improve our neighborhoods. And so when I talk to my leaders like George Preston, who's going to be coming up next to talk about how this is going to have a positive impact in his neighborhood, I listen and I support, and that's why I'm glad to be introducing George Preston today from Mohican Region Homeowners Association, the president, about what his thoughts are around supporting the neighborhood bonds. Proposal N. Thank you, Mr. Preston.
Thank you, Councilman Benson. I feel like I'm repeating some of the things that's already been said, but I'm excited when I hear what is happening with the mayor and also the city council. I live in these neighborhoods now. I've been in my home for almost 40 years, and I've seen some changes come about in my neighborhood. Now, I'm one of those fortunate. I could have moved, but I love my neighbors. I love my community, and I decided to stay and just get involved. And we meet, and we organized our group, and we meet monthly to talk about the issues and concerns of our community. One of those concerns being the blight in the community, and that's some of these vacant properties. And now we try to do our part in terms of trying to keep it as clean as we possibly can, but again, we want people in those properties. So I'm excited when I hear that hopefully this is something that's going to be coming. We're going to get people hopefully in these properties, and we're going to get these properties cleaned up, and just bringing about a vibrant neighborhood in our community. And once we get those occupied, hopefully that means we're going to get businesses coming back into our community. So as I look forward, as I was saying, I feel real excited about what is going on and where we're headed. I want to thank you for this opportunity just to share my thoughts with where we're going. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Jameson.
Great, so I have the luxury of introducing our last speaker, and then I'll come back and start taking questions. Chandra McMillan is the convener of the Detroit 21 community development organizations in the city. During the last dialogue about blight bonds, as they were so named last time, began interacting as a result of some writings and some editorials with Detroit 21 on ways that they could be part of the work that we were doing and more explicitly. So out of that conversation came a process that I'm hoping that Chandra McMillan from Detroit 21 will share and how it's part of what we're doing right now. Chandra?
Good afternoon. Again, my name is Chandra McMillian, and I am pleased to be here on behalf of the Detroit 21, which is a collective of the executive directors of community development organizations from across Detroit of a variety of different sizes that are working with residents, with black clubs, neighborhood associations, and a variety of interests of the community to make sure that there's a sustained voice in the city and across the city on behalf of the entire city. We really have been pleased to have the opportunity to work not only with the city council, and with many other community leaders, actually since October of 2019. We have been engaged in ongoing conversations as part of larger collectives as well as smaller group conversations to really make sure that the voice of community is being represented in all of those conversations. We believe that what is going to work best for Detroit are solutions that are resident-driven, that are resident-centered, that involve residents at every level of the process, from the original identification of problems all the way to the implementation of solutions and then the improvement of those solutions. So we look forward to continuing to have that opportunity to do so. We have been very excited about the changes that we have fought for and that we have urged the city to do. We have definitely been focused on making sure that there is a priority and an understanding of the need to maintain, to repair, to rehab, and to resource quality, affordable housing across the city of Detroit. We know this Detroit has been known as a place where you can get a home, and unlike many other communities. And we want Detroit to continue to be known for that, especially right now, especially as a city that provides equal and equitable development across the city, where if you want a good home, you can find it in Detroit, that we really establish an even new level of really pride in who Detroit is and the kind of home that you can develop that, again, addresses a variety of different community needs. We have also, of course, supported the demolition of unsafe and unstable structures. So we actually support the combination of the multiple strategies to address, and not just one size fits all, but to really do a quality assessment to make sure if it's a good house that needs some work, let's invest in that. If it's a house that is really never going to be able to be restored, then we would like to see it removed as quickly as possible. We received the proposal in yesterday, and we are going to be meeting to analyze it and to provide feedback, and we look forward to continuing to be into conversations to ensure that, again, it is representing the interest of the cities and the residents across the city. We are very interested in specific numbers to really understand what resources will be going to community and in what way, so that we can understand the impact and make sure that that impact is going to be one that residents can see and that residents are excited about. We have also been working with the city and others in the development of pilot programs to really work towards, again, comprehensive community development that is holistic, again, that involves residents, that involves a variety of neighborhoods, and that is truly citywide. So we look forward to meeting to assess this, to provide feedback, and potentially the opportunity for residents to vote on the degree to which it meets their needs, and that the CDOs across the city of Detroit will continue to be focused on representing the resident voice, serving those resident needs, and making sure we get the resources to do what really is going to lift up Detroit and make us all proud. Thank you.
Great, well, that ends our formal presentation for today, and I think we're here to answer the questions of members of the press who are here. Thanks very much, Chandra, for that. Look forward to hearing how your meeting goes on Monday. So with that, I think I'm happy to open up questions and direct to the right people and make sure you get them answered today. So.
My name is Carson Hedgepeth. I just had a question. Mayor Duggan was speaking about just making sure that Detroiters are being hired by the contractors, and I just wanted to know, I wanted him to expound on that really, like, is that being incentivized, or is there some kind of program that council is putting in place to make sure that happens? Sure. So I just wanted to know.
Mayor, do you want to do that?
So that's a great question. For major public construction projects in this city, there's an executive order 2016-1 that says that the companies doing the work have to have 51% of the construction hours worked be done by residents of the city of Detroit. And our Civil Rights Inclusion Office goes out every 2 weeks and looks at the books of each of the projects, and if they fall short of the 51%, they pay into a training fund that goes largely to support the training programs at Randolph and some others. So we have never applied, the city has never, from the time Mayor Coleman Young first put it into effect, has never applied that 51% standard to smaller projects like this. So we are saying we are going to extend this. This is something Councilmember Sheffield proposed back in the fall. We are going to extend this to these smaller rehab and demolition contractors. But second, we're going to give them a choice. If you are a company that's from out of town and you don't have 51%, we're going to give you the choice to do what Fiat Chrysler has done, which is go to Nicole Sherrod Freeman in Detroit at Work. And Detroit at Work will recruit and have a whole list of qualified Detroiters who want to get into the construction business. And the Fiat Chrysler requirement, which is working extremely well, they're doing the interviews right now for the new plant, is they have to interview every Detroiter off of our list before they can interview anybody outside of Detroit. And you're going to see, I think, several thousand Detroiters working at the Fiat Chrysler plant, hundreds of Detroiters working at the new Dakota supplier plant at the old Kettering site, and the like, as more and more companies are buying into the Fiat Chrysler approach. So one way or another, we are going to make sure that it is Detroiters who get the jobs under this bond issue. And again, these are things that I'm expecting City Council will adopt as part of a resolution if they choose to place this on the ballot. So those guarantees are locked in. I don't know if you guys have anything you want to add to that.
So some are questioning the timing of reviving this in the midst of an economic crisis that brings with it the potential for more mortgage and tax foreclosures. He mentioned that unemployment has soared. Meanwhile, you're currently still dealing with tax instability. I'm told right now Detroit homeowners owe cumulatively about $100 million in taxes. In the event that all those properties were enrolled in pay-as-you-stay, that would be reduced to about 25 mil, 30 mil, but that issue remains. So we have an existing housing issue that could worsen. And we know that when houses go vacant, that creates blight, and it's often more expensive to eradicate blight than prevent it. So my question would be, why not spend some of this money to ensure that everyone who currently has a roof over their head can keep it?
So I guess I'll start, and Mayor, if you want to add anything, I'd be happy to have you do that. So as I think you and others have covered, last month, late in the month, the council accepted and approved just under $30 million of money from the CARES Act in the form of CDBG, Community Development Block Grant Funds, and something called Emergency Solutions Grant Funds. And so that was put into a series of unprecedented things for, at least for us, eviction defense, rental assistance to people who are in need, and a series of food delivery and other programs that are designed to respond to the kind of emergent needs that people have in this crisis, which I think are going to become more acute as the additional payment goes away at the end of the month. So just to give a little sense of scale, that $30 million is approximately the same as the entire city's annual allocation of community development block grant funds. So it's a very significant amount. I should add that in the period since that acceptance, the city's also been granted another $9 million of emergency solutions grant funds that have not been yet accepted and appropriated. But what we're hoping is that once the funds that, for example, Wayne Metro has received through the CARES Act and is currently allocating to people who need rental assistance or eviction defense, we're hoping that that first wave is absorbed there. The second wave that we've been cultivating through with the Council of CARES Act money comes to bear, and then then that third piece, the $9 million I mentioned, begins to do what you're saying, because I agree with you. The most inexpensive way to do it is to keep people in their houses so we don't get more houses down. However, I do want to emphasize something else that was also in the CARES Act, which is a statement that talks about the economic and housing market disruption caused by COVID. And if there's one thing I've noticed, it's that between the slowdown in the number of demolitions, which is important, and COVID, some of the momentum that we have enjoyed in our recovery over the last few years is definitely at risk. And if we are able to use the $40 million, the first 30, and then the additional 9, so $39 million, we've got to keep people in houses, and then we can use these bond funds and hopefully additional CARES Act funds to kind of supercharge this. We can have a kind of counter-cyclical investment that keeps people, and then we're able to kind of get back the momentum that we enjoyed really until COVID struck. So I want to agree entirely with the question, but we think we've got almost $40 million to attack that problem. And we don't know. Unfortunately, we don't know. But I would tell you that on a scale, it's a very significant amount. And I think I'd want to get a little further into August and September before we know whether or not it's going to be enough or we'll need more. Mayor, anything you want to add to that?
So it's a good question, and it's one that sometimes people get confused on, but I want to talk about what the law is as far as selling bonds. Bonds can only be used for capital projects that have a long-term public life. You can sell bonds to build roads because they'll be there. You can sell bonds to build a police station because it's going to be there. You can sell bonds for demolition and neighborhood improvements because it's going to be there for 10 or 20 years. You can't sell bonds for ongoing expenses. We can't sell bonds to hire more cops or to hire more rec aides or to give people some type of short-term assistance. That's just not legal in a way to do it. And so what Mr. Jemison just said is correct. We've got $40 million coming in from sources for HUD that we can use for that kind of support. Bond money can only be used for long-term improvement. So we can't put this money into schools or police or anything else. We have a simple choice as a city. If you had $250 million in long-term public investment to improve your quality of life, would you put it into saving the houses in your neighborhood that can be saved and getting rid of the ones that can't, as opposed to more road projects or the like? And so that's the reason why the bond funds, if we do them, can only be used this way. And as far as why the timing now, let me give that question to Councilman Spivey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we all know, running a city is a multifaceted operation. And just as we have the COVID-19 situation before us, we have protests and we have some major or some financial challenges in every city, the city must still go forward. And timing now is that this council will be in session another 2 weeks, and we come back the week after Labor Day. And if we're going to move this forward, it has to be done right now in order to go on the November ballot. Additionally, as Arthur said, the demos have slowed down just a bit, and we have about 19 or 20 demo companies who are longing for work right now. If we can't get it done right now, which means we won't get on the ballot in November, it'll move to 2021. And we will have probably all 20 companies go out of business, and that'll mean more Detroiters out of work, 20 businesses gone away, and they may not live in the city any longer. So, and then in addition to that, the 20,000 homes we have right now may turn into 25 or 30,000. So the timing is, someone will say you never have perfect timing. I think this is the right time to do so. The mayor spoke on the financial aspect, but timing is here. We have before us right now, and we trust that we'll be a model for other cities to be hopeful, be courageous in desperate times of need, that we still go forward making our city what it needs to be.
Hi, good afternoon. So I have a question about the workforce element of the plan. So basically, companies have a choice, and they get to choose whatever they wish, right, between the 51% executive order requirement or basically the FCA style deal. So if a company chooses the FCA style deal, and they're maybe not hiring. I mean, there are a lot of companies not hiring right now. I mean, what's to stop a company from moving forward without, you know, a substantial amount of Detroiter residents? Is there any sort of plan to deal with that when it happens if these companies aren't going to be hiring a ton of people through the Detroit at Work process?
So we'll look at that closely, but $250 million is a massive infusion in this industry. So it's not conceivable to me that it won't involve large-scale hiring. And the question is, who gets the jobs? And we feel like this way, we aren't just saying, and you've got some Detroit-based companies, Guyanga, for example, I think 90% of their workforce is residents of the city of Detroit. They're going to qualify for the 51%. They've hired 50 Detroiters already. They should be. Now, I hope they get a lot bigger and they hire a lot more Detroiters. But you might have another company that has never made that commitment to hiring Detroiters. And if they want to participate in what will be, without a doubt, the largest neighborhood redevelopment program in America, they're going to have to hire people. And if they want to do it, they're going to have to hire Detroiters. And so you imagine a Detroit at Work running training programs for landscaping, for inspection, from trucking, for any number of these kinds of jobs that we're going to need. If Detroit at Work is doing our job in training people and identifying Detroiters, they've got a lot more money coming in that they hire. I think we will have success. And I will be working closely with council. We're going to monitor every single day. The whole point of this is to put Detroiters back to work, and we think this combination of these two tools is the best way to assure that every single Detroiter we can put to work, we will.
And then will Detroit at Work need more money, more resources to handle this influx of training?
So we have a number of sources of funding for Detroit at Work, and Nicole Sherrard-Freeman will be talking in detail next week about the plans for that. But they prioritize their job training based on where the demands are. They put huge amounts of resources into the resource and recruiting. I think we probably spent $1 million on the FCA recruitment because that's where the demand was. It is our job to get Detroiters every opportunity to go to work. And when the opportunities open up in the rehab and demolition field, Detroit at Work's just going to shift their training and recruitment activities. That's what they do, and they're just doing an outstanding job.
Okay, and then last question, you mentioned a goal of 51% or more of the contracts being Detroit-based or Detroit headquartered companies. What's that metric based on? Is that a specific?
That's something that we have talked about together. We're going to set aside 30% for small businesses, and 51% overall is going to be the target for Detroiters. But the 30% for small businesses is really important because you can get small growing companies starting in Detroit. We don't want them to be squished by the big guys before they get started. And so we want to build our own construction industry base of Detroit contractors. And so I don't know, Councilman Benson has been a major advocate for the small business side, and I don't know if you'd like to say anything about the plans and how we're going to prioritize that.
Thank you, Mayor. And so one of the things we've talked about earlier, but we haven't revisited, is the fact that this is Detroit money. So when it's Detroit money, Detroit gets to set the rules. So when it was federal money, they set the rules. But when it's Detroit money, we get to determine. And so this is also how we take our money and we reinvest in our communities in our city. And we say, you know what, we want to make sure that our small businesses get a chunk of this pie. So in the past, on the federal side, you had to have the bonding, you had to have the infrastructure, and you had to have the track record. So you weren't able to get those smaller companies in who could then learn the business, grow, and then hire more Detroiters. Now we have that opportunity, and Detroit businesses hire Detroiters. And so when you had demolition companies coming as far away as Jackson, coming from the Thumb, they weren't hiring Detroiters. Now we're going to have local companies who are going to be hiring Detroiters and who have the best interests at heart for our Detroit residents. That's why it's very, very important that we see those jobs stay here. And you also have to remember that income taxes are very important to the coffers of the city of Detroit, and we have to grow our bottom line. And this helps do that. And so we are taking, and as the old saying goes, charity begins at home. We are taking our money and investing in our home. Charity begins at home. And this is another reason why residency has its privileges here in the city of Detroit.
Go. Shoot.
A couple quick questions, Mr. Mayor, kind of off topic, infrastructure questions. The Detroit International Bridge Company has requested MDOT's permission to allow hazardous waste or hazardous materials truckers to go over the Ambassador Bridge. And MDOT's director has said that he wants to see a letter of support from the legislators in that area, in that neighborhood, as well as the county executive and yourself. Do you have a position?
I haven't seen that request and I haven't looked at it.
Okay, have you thought much about it or
Again,
heard?
this is the first time hearing that there was a request, so if there's a request for an opinion, it hasn't hit my desk.
Okay, and secondly, I noticed the SEMCOG the SEMCOG board has to basically formally vote to remove I-375 from the 5-year plan. The State Transportation Commission did this back in February. What's your thoughts about that? Just basically taking this project that's been in the works for many years and now kicking it probably later in the decade?
With all of the work that has gone into it and all of the money that's been expended, I'm not sure I understand the rationale behind that, and I hope they'll change their mind.
Have you been trying to convince
Yeah,
some
we're in
people
the preliminary stages of looking at that, but they have put a huge amount of time and expense into it already. I'm not sure what the thinking is.
They basically said it didn't qualify as one of the, projects to rebuild Michigan.
Okay?
Do you have thoughts about that?
Again, I don't want to answer something that I'm not enough up on. I know that the folks in our DPW department are talking to them. I know that MDOT has expended an enormous amount of money on raising 375 already. I know the design process is still going forward. What's the timing on the construction? I'm just not sure.
Have you long supported that project then?
Oh, sure.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
If the voters approve this, when would you guys go and actually sell the bonds? And do you expect the uncertain economic climate to affect the bond sale at all?
So our Chief Financial Officer, Dave Masseron, says as of today, there is a significant market for the bonds, and Detroit's reputation is very high. We would go to the market in December, and, I don't know what the economic situation is. If there's a total change in the economic situation, it would affect everybody. Right now, Detroit's in a good position. We can start the work immediately after the election and then use the bond proceeds when they're sold. So we will get this going relatively quickly, but the Chief Financial Officer tells me he thinks he'll get the bond sold in December.
Is the city still trying to acquire private blighted properties and get them in the demo pipeline?
No. So I can go in more details than anyone wants to hear, but the federal demolition rules, which were enormously restrictive, only allowed federal money to be used if the city had title to the property, the land bank had title to the property. So the land bank was taking title so they could use the federal money. Federal money is gone, so there's no reason that the city would be trying to acquire property that needs to be demolished, because the reason for it is no longer in effect.
The last question. There were some concerns raised last year about contaminated dirt in some of the demo sites. Are there any developments or findings in those reviews of the dirt that you could share?
Yeah, they were released, I'm going to say 3 or 4 months ago. But the issues with DMC, I think they tested 50 sites, and all 50 came back clean. Those results were released publicly at least 3 or 4 months ago. But we monitor every single complaint, every single issue on soil on every single site. It's an ongoing thing, and probably not a week goes by that we aren't challenging a contractor from our BC department on the quality of the dirt, and we're going to remain vigilant.
So have there been other concerns raised since those results that were released?
I don't know what the details are. I don't have the BSEED inspection reports. I just know that BSEED is continually saying, where's your documentation, where did it come from, and the like. So they're going to continue to be aggressive and continue to enforce the rules.
Thanks.
Any other questions? All right, thank you all very much.